Welcome back to the exciting book of 2Samuel, the reign of David, King David. All right, today we are on chapter 3, so we're going to be taking a look at chapter 3. So, let's jump right in. Let me have my first reader read 2 Samuel 3, 1 through 5, please.
Now there was long war between the house of Shaul and the house of David, but David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Shaul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and his second Chileab of Abigail the wife of Naboth the Carmelite, and the third Absalom the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, and the fourth Adoniah, the son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah, the son of Abitai, and the sixth Ithream by Alga, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. We're talking about David, and that's as I mentioned in the previous weeks. And the story of David, especially, in him coming into reign, we have a type of our Messiah, but also we have a type of the overcomer. Because David was an overcomer, and so he's an example of the overcomer. We read throughout the letters to the churches in Revelation, about those who will overcome, right? Well, David is a perfect example to follow, in conjunction with our Messiah, of course, as to how to overcome. And we spoke about the spiritual significance of David. His name David actually meaning beloved or loving. And he was both. So we talked about Israel having a king over them and having another anointed king, and at the time when 2 Samuel, when David began to reign, you actually have two kings reigning in Israel. Now, the spiritual significance of that, is, first of all, Yah looked at all Israel as one person. So this is a picture of a man with two kings within him, both of them trying to reign. Apostle James would call that a double-minded man. Amen. Which is unstable in all his ways. Okay, so there's two kings. One king is beloved and is loving. The other king is Saul. His name means asked or requested. Or desired. And so we see a contrast of two types of kings that's ruling within Israel. Now, Israel applies to each and every one of us. For Israel, Yah has given me a revelation of that name. That is three Hebrew words. It's a compound word made up of three Hebrew words: Yish, Ra, and El. And that anyone becomes Israel, spiritually speaking, when they wrestle with good and with evil and prevail by holding on to good, which is Elohim. And so when we consider this, here it is. We have Israel. We have a man. Been through his baptism. That is, came through the Red Sea. And now here it is. He has two kings within him. That oppose one another. One is loving and is beloved, and the other, is centered around what we ask for and what we desire. Amen. Everybody get the picture, the spiritual picture? Yes. Okay, so with that in mind, let's pick it up from verse 1. It said, Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. And what I'm here to tell you is that each one of us, when we come out of the world, you know, and we're baptized into the body of Messiah, we too become as Israel during this time. We too have two kings within us trying to rule and reign. One is beloved and loving of Elohim, and the other is centered around what we desire and what we request and ask for in life. Amen? Amen. Okay, so now if we do this thing like David done this thing, like David, you know, then the same thing will happen. You know, and it says, now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. So don't think that this thing is going to, you know, when you come out of the world and you begin to walk this thing out, that it's just going to be instantaneous, that you're just going to be able to that you're good and your beloved and loving king that's within you, you know, that's of Elohim, is going to, that's beloved of Elohim and loves everything that is of Elohim, is just going to begin to rule right off the rip. No, you know, he's going to have opposition. In fact, you know, the one who rules first is Saul. Right? Your desires, you know, the things that you want, what you're requesting. Okay, but, you know, so this shows us that there will be a war. And it says, but David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. If you keep at this thing, you know, and you do rightly, the beloved of Elohim and that which is in you that loves Elohim will wax stronger and stronger, and that which you request or desire of the world will wax weaker and weaker. Okay? Now, it gets to the point where David was told to go to Hebron. We talked about Hebron, right? Last week. And Hebron, anybody remember what Hebron meant?
Communion.
Communion, absolutely, absolutely. Communion and association. So, you know, here it is, you know, David, the beloved of Elohim, the loving of Elohim, dwelling in Hebron, dwelling in communion and in association with Yah. Okay, and from him being here in Hebron, being in communion with Elohim, in association with him, you know, and beginning to rule, you know, in Israel, you know, he begins to give birth, you know, and he births a man. Now, that's what we have here in verses 2 through 5, is that man that's birthed, spiritually speaking. Yeah. You know, now, physically speaking, he gave birth to 6 sons. Spiritually speaking, 6 is the number of man and the works of man. So this is the type of man that came forth from him being in association or communion with Hebron. Notice he had no children, even though he had wives, prior to getting to Hebron. You know, now some may think that's happenstance, you know, but I think that's Yah. You know, and I think it's even there that we might learn the lesson. You know, he didn't have any children when he was dwelling in Ziklag, you know, even though he was married to 2 wives. You know, neither one of them got pregnant. You know, but when they got to Hebron, Yah opened his wife's wombs. And so here it is. It tells us that his firstborn was Amnon, you know, and Amnon, his name means faithful. And then he had Kiliab, whose name means restraint of his father. Then he had Absalom, that speaks to father's peace, or father of peace. His mom name was Ma'akah, which speaks to pressure, and she was the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. Talmai speaks to a pharaoh, and in case you're unfamiliar with the term pharaoh is like a rut that you dig to plant stuff in. You know, like when you're planting, you dig a furrow and you plant the seeds in. You know, which is very revelatory, spiritually speaking. Okay, and then he was the king of Geshur, which is, you know, speaks to a bridge. Okay, now you have fourth was born Adoniah, whose name means my Adonai, or my Lord is Yah. And he was the son of Hagith, which speaks to festive, which the root is Kag, where, the three Kags that we're to go and worship Yah during the year, from the very same root. And then we have, fifthly, Shaphatiah, which means Yah is judge, or Yah is my judge. And then he was the son of Abital, which speaks to the father of dew, or covering of vegetation. And we have Ithream, or Ithream, better yet, and which speaks to an abundance of people, which was the son of Eglah, a heifer. Okay. Now, spiritually speaking, when you put this together, recognizing that the 6 is the number of man in his works, for man was created on the 6th day, and he was commanded for 6 days to work. Amen. Okay, so now, when you consider this, what Scripture is telling us about, spiritually speaking, about David when dwelling in Hebron, when a beloved one, or one that is loving Elohim, that's beloved of Elohim and loving Elohim, and is in communion or Hebron with Elohim, they will give birth to a son. This son will be faithful. This son will have the restraint of his father, and he will be fathered from above. He'll have the restraint of his father, and he will have, from that restraints, it will bring his father's peace. When he does what his father tells him to do, then he'll have his father's peace. His father won't be wanting to, put the rod of correction on him. Amen. Now, he's born of pressure, pressure that comes from being furrowed, that is, having his ground overturned so a planting can take place, so that Yah can put his seed within him. And that seed is the king of the bridge. What bridge? The bridge that connects man with Yah. The bridge that allows one to say that they are Adonai, or their Adonai is Yah. And he's born from festivity, or Yah's Kogs, from doing what Yah says, going around his Moedim, time in and time out, and allowing Shephatiah, that is, allowing Yah to be their judge, and allowing Yah, which comes from Abital, to be the father of the dew, or the covering for them, and even as, Scripture speaks of Israel as being the planting of Elohim, brings about an abundance of people, from a heifer. Now, who's the heifer? Anyone? Or is everyone just lost?
David's wife.
Just lost.
No. Ephraim. Ephraim is the heifer. The standard of Ephraim was the heifer. When our Messiah came, he did entangle himself with Ephraim, with the house of Israel, and essentially that's what this is speaking to. It's speaking to a faithful one has the restraints of his father, has his father's peace, but still has to go through the pressures of having the seed of Elohim being sold into him, becoming that bridge, who's recognizing their Adonai is Yah, who's keeping his Moedim, whose Yah is the judge of, who Yah is the cover of, who Yah utilized to bring forth an abundance of people from Ephraim. Selah. Think about it. Check it out on YouTube. Go back, meditate on it. Yah willing, he'll open your eyes to it. Moving right along. 2 Samuel 3, 6, and 7. And it came to pass that while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, and the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said unto Abner, wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? Now, Rizpah, she was a hot one. Her name means a hot stone. And Aiah, who's her father, it actually speaks to a hawk or a falcon. You know, not really good implications there. You know, verses 8 through 11 goes on to say, then Abner was very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, am I a dog's head which against Yahudah do show kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, and to his brethren, and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David, that thou chargest me this day with a fault concerning this woman? So do Elohim to Abner, and more also, except as Yahuwah have sworn to David, even so I do to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Yahudah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word. Why? Because he feared him. You know, you won't quite get this if you don't understand the culture. You know, so I have to speak to it a little bit, because you're liable to miss it. You know, why was Ishbosheth concerned with Abner going into Rizpah? You know, and what was meant when he said, wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? You know, and we see in verse 8 it says, then Abner was very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth. Why did he get so upset? You know, because he asked him a simple question, why you went into my father's concubine? You know, and it's even because in saying that, he was accusing him of treason. And that's what Abner, which was the general, took offense to. And hence we see in the latter part of verse 8, it says, that thou chargest me. You're accusing me today with a fault concerning this woman. You're trying to imply that I'm committing treason, that I want to take the kingdom. You know, and so he gets really upset about that. And he decides, well, look, I'm done helping you. You know, as Yahuwah have sworn to David, even so I do to him. So now I'm on Yahuwah's side and David's side. Now he's switching, you know, to the other side. Now Abner was Ishbosheth's general, and the only thing that was keeping him from falling to King David. You know, and even because he was the son of a lamp. That's what his name means. You know, he's the son of a lamp. So he had, you know, he had knowledge of the light. You know, and so now Ishbosheth, whose name means man of shame, you know, now he doesn't even have that going for him. You know, and so Abner intends to translate the kingdom over from the house of Saul to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Yahudah. You know, so this is what's going on. Verses 12 through 14, my next reader, please.
And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, whose is the land? Saying also, make thy league unto me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou bring Michal, Shaul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Shaul's son, saying, deliver my wife Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistine.
Hallelujah. Thank you. All right, so here it is. Abner puts his plan into effect. He's saying he's doing what he said he was going to do. He sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, "Whose is the land? We know whose the land is. It's Yah's, right? Yeah. Whose is the land that you're dwelling in? Yah's, I hope, right? So he said, make a league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee." And so David, he agrees to this, but he says, but one thing I require of thee, except thou bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Now this was actually David's first wife. Okay? And so in order to understand this, I'm trying not to assume that everyone knows the stories, and so, we have to do a little backtracking back to 1 Samuel in order for you to understand why David wanted Michal. And so Michal, her name means a brook, and which can speak to wise counsel, and she did give him some wise counsel, as you're going to see. So to understand what's going on with Michal and what they're talking about, espoused to me for 100 foreskins, we're gonna go back, way back to 1 Samuel, when he just prior to him getting married to Saul's daughter, Michal. 1 Samuel 18:20. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. So hereby we learn that she actually loved David. And it says, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. Okay, and we jump down to verses 22 and 23, and it says, and Saul commanded his servants, saying, commune with David secretly, and say, behold, the king hath delighted in thee, and all his servants love thee. See, he truly was beloved and is loving. Now, therefore, be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servant spake these words in the ears of David, and David said, seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I'm a poor man and lightly esteemed? You're like, come on, now, I'm broke. How I'm going to pay a dowry for the king's daughter? Really? Stop playing, But, this thing was coming from Saul. He had a plan, and we're going to take a sidebar now. Yeah, like my sidebar? Yeah. So we're going to take a sidebar, because understanding that David is a man after Yah's own heart, and I don't want us to miss this as we go through the story of David and how he's an overcomer. If we're going to be an overcomer, we have to have a heart after Elohim ourselves. Amen. Even as our Messiah had a heart after Yah's own heart. Amen. Even because he was Elohim. But nevertheless, he had a heart after him, right? Okay, so what made David a man after Elohim's own heart? That's rhetorical. I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. So as we go through this story of David, we're going to be taking these sidebars and we're going to be learning what actually made David a man after Yah's own heart. And Yah willing, I'm going to try to prove it to you as well. Amen? Scripturally speaking, that is. All right, so to do so, let's jump back in. We're going to begin with 1 Samuel 18:6-12. It says, and it came to pass that as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, the women came out of all cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with the tabrets and with joy and with instruments of music. And I have to go back and do this because if not, you're not going to understand the dynamics of how he married Michal. And that's important to see his heart. Amen. Okay, verse 7. And the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day and forward. So he began to look at David from that day forward, in a bad way. You know, he was giving them the evil eye, watching you. Verse 10, and it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from Elohim came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house, and David played with his hand, and as at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David, even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. And Saul was afraid of David because Yahuwah was with him and was departed from Saul. Yes. Kind of make you wonder what he was prophesying when he prophesied, right? You know? But whatever it was, it got him pretty stirred up. You know? And he tried to kill David twice. You know? He threw the javelin at him twice. You know? And it says that he was afraid of David because Yahuwah was with him and was departed from Saul. You know, so now we have a little jealousy coming into play. You know, he was afraid of him because Yahuwah was with David and not with him anymore. Now, 1 Samuel 18:16 through 19. But all Israel and Yahudah loved David. See him living up to his name? Yeah. That's one of the things that you'll notice congruent throughout Scripture, you know, with the saints. You know, they actually lived up to their names. Yeah. You know, David's name means beloved and loving, and he was beloved and he was loving. You know, and it says because they all Israel loved Yahudah, Israel and Yahudah loved David because he went out and came in before them. And Saul said unto David, behold, my elder daughter Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me and fight Yahuwah's battles. For Saul said, let not mine hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. So now he want to murder David with the Philistines. Can you see that? Yes. That's the plan. You know, and it says, David said unto Saul, who am I? And what is my life or my father's family in Israel that I should be son-in-law to the king? But it came to pass at the time of Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to Adriel, the Maholathite, to wife. So he went back on his word. Yeah. Can you see that? Yeah. Dirty, rotten. Well, anyway. All right. So, verse 20 and 21. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him. Now remember that. You know, I want you to take that, put it on the shelf for a minute. You know, that was the whole intent of him allowing his daughter to marry David to begin with, that she might be a snare to him. And it says, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So again, he's still trying to murder him, use the Philistines to murder him so he don't take the heat for it. Wherefore Saul said to David, he said, thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. The one of the twain meaning one of his daughters, you know, one of his two daughters. Obviously, it's not going to be Merab. You know, he already gave her away. You know, so it would be Michal, and she loved him. You know, so we jump down to verse 25. It says, and Saul said, thus shall ye say to David, the king desireth not any dowry. Okay, so that gets him off the hook for the money. But 100 foreskins of the Philistines to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. So here it is. This is his plot. This is his plan. He want to kill the beloved and the loving David with the hand of the Philistines. And so he gives them this, you know, what he thought to be impossible task for him to do. Everybody still with me? Nobody sleep yet, right? All right. All right. 1 Samuel 18, 27 through 29. My next reader, please.
Wherefore David arose and went, and he and his men, and slew the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, and that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that Yahuwah was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David, and Saul became David's enemy continually.
Okay, so he put himself on the hook this time, by giving him a definite number of foreskins or scalps to bring back, and it'd be kind of harder for him to get out of this one, whereas he could with Merab, he could say, well, yeah, you were kind of valiant, but not as valiant as I hoped, but this way, he couldn't get out of, because he put a number and a time in all actuality, on it, and so it says in Saul knew that Yahuwah was with David, and that's what really made him his enemy continually, because he didn't want the kingdom to go from his family over to David's. Okay, and verses chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. My next reader, please.
1 Samuel 19, 1 through 4. And Shaul spake unto Jonathan his son and to all his servants that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul my father seeketh to kill thee. Now therefore I pray thee, take heed to thyself until the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee, and what I see that I will tell thee. And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because his works have been to thee word very good.
Okay, I'm sorry, I skipped a very crucial aspect of the story. It says, Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men.
Yeah.
Now what was the requirement?
100.
100 men. But he slew 200 men and brought their foreskins. Now why would he do such a thing? Why would he risk his life, when he already met the requirement, and go on and not just bring a couple extra, but even double the requirement? See, this is a peep into his heart. He's showing us his heart. We can see his heart in this. Now think about this for a second. I don't want to just gloss over this. I want you to think about this. Because here it is, David. He has been. It has been an attempt on his life by Saul 3 times already. 3 times already. Was it 2 or 3? Well, at least a couple times. I know he threw that javelin at him twice, right? So here it is. At least 2 times, Saul has tried to kill him. And so when he came at him with this proposition of killing bringing 100 foreskins to marry his daughter, he already knew in his heart that was a plot to kill him.
So that's the third thing.
Yeah, so he knows that this was intended to be a plot to kill him. But he goes out and not only bring 100 foreskins, but 200, showing Saul, if he didn't already know, that if Yah is with you, who can be against you?
Yeah.
Amen.
Right.
He goes and brings twice the number that was required of him. And it says, and Saul knew that Yahuwah was with David, because he know that wasn't happening. Except that Yah be with him, that wasn't happening. But he was on the hook. He had to give up the daughter now, because not only did he bring the 100, he brought 200. And everybody, all eyes on him now. There's no way he can get out of this one. And so it says that Saul became David's enemy continually. So now he started plotting to kill David. And he bring it to his son, Saul. But he bring it to his son Jonathan. But Jonathan delighted much in David. He's like, that's my best friend. Are you kidding me? And he spoke good of David unto Saul his father, and said, let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he have not sinned against thee. What did he do? And because his works have been to thee very good, he's not only did he not do nothing, he one of the best guys we have.
Amen.
Verses 5 through 12 goes on to say, and he did put his life in his hand and slew the Philistine. And Yahuwah wrought a great salvation for all Israel. Thou sawest? Didst rejoice? You saw it? You rejoice? Wherefore then wilt thou sin against innocent blood to slay David without a cause? And Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan. And Saul sware, as Yahuwah liveth, he shall not be slain. And it says, and Jonathan called David, and Jonathan showed him all these things. So now David knows that at least three times, if not four, including, the plot for him to get his wife, that Saul was trying to kill him. And it says, and Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in the presence as in times past. Everything went back to the way it was. Sure. It goes on in verse 8 through 12. It says, and there was a war again. And David went out and fought with the Philistines and slew them with a great slaughter. And they fled from him. And the evil spirit from Yahuwah was upon Saul. He jealous now. As he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand, and Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin. But he slipped out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. Now we up to about 5 times he done tried to kill my man, right? Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning, saying, Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. So Michal let David down through a window. Was that some good advice right there? Yeah, that was some good advice. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and he fled and escaped. So not only did Michal love him, she saved his life. I think I would want that wife back too. Wouldn't you? Hallelujah. Yeah, I think that's one to get back.
That's a keeper.
Yeah, that's a keeper for sure. All right, now I want us to think about this just for a second. Here it is, this guy, now he's your father-in-law, let alone, first of all, he's your king, he's your boss, and now he's done become your father-in-law. And he's trying to kill you. How crazy is this? He's trying to kill you, and you have to work in the house with him. Can you imagine how life was for David? See, you need to imagine how life was for David, because that's the same way this walk is. When we accept the Messiah and we begin to walk this thing out. We have to overcome the Saul within us. We have to overcome the desires and the things that we ask for within our hearts and minds that's ruling over us. We have to overcome that. And it's constantly trying to kill the part of us that love Yah and the part of us that's loved of Yah. Don't let the David in you get killed by Saul. It's very important to see the spiritual significance of this. And so David's first wife is Michal, whose name means a brook, which speaks to wise counsel. If you're going to overcome Saul, you're going to need some wise counsel. Amen? Otherwise, your desires, the things that you want out of life, will cause that one that's fathered from above, that part of you that loves Yahuwah, that part of you that is loving of everything that is concerning Yahuwah, will get killed. So He wouldn't be a type of overcomer if he didn't overcome something. Amen. You know, just like those we read about in Revelation, they wouldn't be called overcomers if they didn't have anything to overcome. All right, so here it is. We see, you know, this picture of David. And here it is. He's hanging in there, and he's doing the best he can to keep his life. You know, and I'm here to tell you that the beloved of Elohim and the part of you that love Elohim is fighting just as hard to stay alive against the Saul that is within you that's seeking to rule over your land. You know, don't you know that your bodies is just a type of land? You know, hence Psalms 100 say, make a joyful noise, all ye lands. It's just a type of land, and there's two kings in there trying to rule. Don't let David die. You know, now, we got a picture of the heart of David. You know, when he was required to bring 100 foreskins, knowing that it was a plot to take his life, he didn't just bring 100, he brought 200. And I'm going to show you how he had a heart after Elohim. Because when we look at our Messiah, Yahushua, and we look at his commandments, words, and sayings that he's given for us to follow now today, you know, back when he walked the earth, we see the same principle is told that we're supposed to do. You know, to see it, we have to go to Matthew 5:38. It says, ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, in order to understand what I'm trying to get across, you have to understand, you know, this command and what the Yahudim thought of it. See, because the Yahudim, they have, you know, oftentimes we read in the Brit Hadashah of the law, and we just automatically think Torah. You know, but you have to understand that the Yahudim, when they thought about the law, they thought about two laws. They thought about the written law, and they thought about the oral law, and which is the law of their traditions, the Talmudic law. And they uphold the oral law over the written law. You know, and that's not just how they used to think. That's how they think now today. See, and you have to understand this. Otherwise, if you don't understand that dynamic, then you're going to not misunderstand a lot of the Brit Hadashah, a lot of the New Testament. Okay, so with that in mind, you know, we need to understand the interpretation that the rabbis had given in their oral law concerning what Yahushua was talking about when he said, ye have heard that it have been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So he's speaking to their interpretation of what this passage meant. You know, and where did this passage come from? It was quoted from Exodus 21. You know, and we're going to take a look at where it was quoted from. Exodus 21, verse 22, it says, if men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. Everybody got that, right? Yeah. Okay, so first of all, we're talking about if men strive. You know, so this is, you know, you done got into it with your brother. Men are striving, you know, and someone gets hurt. Even a woman with a child, so that her fruit depart from her. Now, there's a condition here. And this condition is, and yet no mischief follow. Everybody with me? So you got men striving, somebody got hurt, a pregnant woman gets hurt, and the child dies, yet no mischief follow. Okay? It says, he shall be surely punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him. And he shall pay as the judges determine. So he has a twofold punishment. You know, one part of the punishment is even as the woman's husband will lay upon him. And the second part of the punishment is he shall pay as the judges determine. Okay? You know, so now, what can the woman's husband lay upon him? You know, and in order to understand that, you know, we have to go to Deuteronomy 21, 1 through 3. And it says, if there be a controversy between men, that's what we're talking about, if men strive, right? If there be a controversy between men and they come unto judgment, that's what we're talking about, judgment, right? Okay, that the judges may judge them, then they shall justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. And it shall be, if the wicked man be worthy to be beaten, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and to be beaten before his face according to his fault by a certain number. So, we got this twofold judgment. You know, the husband get to lay upon him whatever he would, and the judges has to acquiesce to it. All right? You know, so it says, and if the wicked man be worthy to be beaten, then the judge can cause him to lie down and to be beaten before his face according to the fault by a certain number. You can't just beat the man to death. Verse 3, 40 stripes may he give him and not exceed. You cannot beat the man more than 40 stripes. And it says, 40 stripes he may give him, that's the max, and not exceed, lest if he should exceed and beat him above these with many stripes, then thy brother should seem vile unto thee. Okay. Now, knowing this going in, here it is, we have a situation. Men are striving. You know, hey, it's pregnant woman, you know, she gets hurt, she loses the child, you know, her seed departs from her. You know, and no mischief follow. You know, this is the protocol, right? Now, continuing on, Exodus 21 verse 23, you know, speaks to if mischief does follow. Hence it starts off, it says, and if any mischief follow. Everybody see that?
Yes.
The first part speaks to if there is no mischief that follow, yet no mischief follow. And the second part is if any mischief does follow, right? Okay, now if mischief does follow, say for instance, the two men are striving, you know, and one of their pregnant woman, you know, gets hurt and loses the fruit of her womb, you know, and now the guy is thinking he's in a fit of rage and he's like, nah, you know, 40 stripes not good enough. 40 stripes not good enough. No, I'm going to take matters into my own hand. I'm going to take his life. Or I'm going to put his eye out. Or I'm going to knock all his teeth out. Or I'm going to cut his hands off. Or I'm going to take his feet away. Or I'm going to burn him. Or I'm going to wound him. You know, it says, or I'm going to beat him 120 times. You know, give him 120 stripes myself. You know, if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. This is what Yahshua was talking about. Hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Now you have to understand that in accordance to the oral law, in the early period of all systems of law of wrongs takes precedence over the enforcement of contract rights, and a rough sense of justice demands the inflation of the same loss and pain on the aggressor as he has inflicted on his victim. Hence the prominence of lex talionis, which in ancient law, the law of Israel is no exception. In the oldest form, it concluded the lex talionis, the law of measure for measure. You know, this is taken from the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 10, page 385. Okay? You know, and what it is saying is that they believe that the sense of justice demands the infliction of the same loss and pain on the aggressor as he inflicted on his victim. You know, now, at first glance, it looks as though maybe this is what Yah meant. But this is not what Yah meant. This is a wrong interpretation of this passage. Yah only says that thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, so on and so forth, if any mischief follow.
Yeah.
Only if mischief follow. You know, if mischief didn't follow, then the protocol wasn't a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The protocol was he was to be punished according to the woman's husband lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. You know, and, you know, so if that was the case, if it was the way that they perceived it, then, that would mean that, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to kill one of his kids because he killed one of mine. This is never what Yah intended. But this is the way that the oral law interpreted this passage. But this is not what Yah intended. That's why he has two conditions. If no mischief follow, and if mischief follow. If no mischief follow, this is the protocol. And it is not that severe. He's not telling them that, hey, you can go and take somebody else's life because you lost a life. You can only beat them up to 40 stripes and no more. That's the max penalty. And if the judges determine that you need to pay some monies, then you have to pay that too. But that's the most that can happen. Is you get 40 stripes and you got to pay a fine. So they took that and ran with it and just totally omitted if there not be any mischief and treated all cases as if there was mischief and determined that a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In other words, measure for measure. And I pray that you can see this is a wrong interpretation of this. That is not what Yah meant. That was never the way that the statute of Torah was to be interpreted. That's how it was interpreted in the Babylonian script called the Hammurabi Code of Laws. But not how Yahuwah intended, which is evident by the actions of King David, the man after Yahuwah's own heart, bringing Saul 200 scalps instead of 100, the 100 that was required. This is why he done that. He was going even over and beyond, showing Saul that, look, Yah is with me. I'm not worried about nothing you try to throw at me. Yes, I'm going to be wise as the serpent, but I'm going to be as gentle as a dove. Saul repeatedly tried to kill David time and time and time again. And there was even instances where Saul was put into the hand of David, and David could have killed him. And he didn't lay a finger on him. More than once. And he still didn't exact revenge on him. That's because he loved his enemies. You have to be able to see that. Because that's the heart of David. And that was the heart of Yahshua. Hence, he goes on to say in verses 39 through 41, he says, remember verse 38 said, ye have heard that it have been said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He says, but I say unto you that ye resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go 1 mile, go with him 20. Can you see that the heart of David fulfilled that perfectly? Yes. Instead of going 1 mile, he went 2. Instead of bringing 100 foreskins, he brought 2. He did not resist evil. Instead, he took it. And he touched not Yah's anointed. Within that, you can see his heart. You can see how he had a heart for Yah. And you can see how it's congruent to what the Messiah taught. Hence, the Messiah is called the son of David. All right, back to 2 Samuel 3, verses 15 and 16. It says, and Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel, taking Michal, and the son of Laish. Phaltiel means deliverance of Elohim, and yes, he's delivering his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife. And he was the son of Laish, which means crushing, and yes, that was crushing unto him. And you're going to see how much so. In verse 16 it says, and her husband went with her alone, weeping behind her. He was crushed. To Bahurim. And then said Abner unto him, go, return. And he returned. Abner was a bad man. Bahurim means young men. Okay. verses 17 through 22. My next reader, please.
And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, "You sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it. For Yahuwah hath spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hands of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies." And Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men were with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, "I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my Adonai the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth." And David sent Abner away, and he went away in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace.
Okay, so I don't want you to miss the spiritual picture here. Here it is. You have Israel, and you have this war going on inside of them, and, we liken it to an analogy of someone who's come out of the world, and they have this war going on inside of them. They're warring against, the things that they want out of life, the things that they request, that they desire, versus the love of Elohim, the things that's beloved of Elohim and loving Elohim in and of himself. This battle is going on within everyone.
Yes.
And here it is, your desires die. Saul, is Saul dead yet? Yeah, Saul's dead. So your desires die. And the part within you that loves Yah, and the part that Yah loves has grown stronger and stronger. And here it is, you're on the verge of the part that is loved of Elohim, and the part that loves Elohim is about to rule over all the land. And so this is where we are. And I want you to understand what's being implied here, spiritually speaking. Verse 18, it says, "Now then do it, for Yahuwah hath spoken to David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel from out of the hands of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies." Now the Philistines means immigrants. And that's that can speak to the people that's in your life that is not of Elohim. Amen. They're all up in the land and in the face of the land, but they are not of Elohim, and they are our enemies, and they work with, sometimes cause Saul, our desires, and the things that we yearn for, they cause that battle to be even stronger, Now, but the point that I want to make here is they knew what the will of Elohim was, because he says, ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. And everyone who comes out of the world and they really become Israel, they really begin to wrestle with good and evil and want to prevail by holding on to Elohim. They will all come to this, to this point to where, okay, I want the loving part, the part that is loved of Elohim and is loves Elohim to rule over all of me. They will come to that part, even as they did, but even knowing that Yahuwah has spoken that part is supposed to rule over all the land, yet they still refuse to allow David to rule. It's only up to a certain point that they give in, when Abner comes, and delivers them over to David. Prior to that, you have a picture of those in Israel that know David is supposed to rule, but yet they're not allowing him to rule. They're in the way of him ruling. And so when you consider that, on an individual basis, that speaks to each and every one of us, knowing what Yah wants to rule over us,
Yeah.
yet fighting against it.
Mm.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
I pray you can see that, because that's a huge revelation. You know, verses 23 through 27 goes on to say, when Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king, and he hath sent him away, and he is gone in peace. And Joab came to the king and said, what hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quite gone? Thou knowest Abner, the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. And when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, and brought him again from the well of Sirah. But David knew it not. Sirah means to turning or turn off. You know, and verse 27 says, and when Abner was returned to Hebron, when he turned off, you know, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the fifth rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. Sad. You know, now if you remember from last week's lesson, you know, Abner killed Asahel, his brother, but he didn't do it. He didn't really want to do it. The guy left him no choice. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, and just to help you remember, I brought back 2 Samuel 2:23. It says, howbeit he refused to turn aside. He was trying to get him to turn aside, like, man, I don't want to kill you. How am I going to look at your brother the same? You know, it says, wherefore Abner with the hinder end of the spear smote him under the fifth rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to where the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Remember that?
Yeah.
You know, now we see that Joab was exacting vengeance. You know, where Yahuwah says, vengeance is mine, Joab said, you know, nah, I need this myself. You know, and take notice, he killed him in the same manner that he killed his brother. He smote him under the fifth rib. You know, so, you know, remember, vengeance is Yah's. Verses 28 through 34, and after when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before Yahuwah forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let it not fail from the house of Joab, one that have an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or lack of bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother slew Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel in Gibeon in the battle. Now we see that Abishai was in on it too. Amen. You know, and David said to Joab and to all the people that were with him, rend your clothes and gird you with sackcloth and mourn before Abner. The king David himself also followed the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner. And all the people wept, and the king lamented over Abner and said, died Abner as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put in the fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And all the people wept over him again. And when all the people came to cause David to eat meat, while it was yet day, David sware, saying, so do Elohim to me, and more so if I taste bread, or aught else till the sun be down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day, though anointed king, and these men of sons of Zuriah be too hard for me. Yahuwah shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness.
Yes.
You know, and truly he will. That's all I have for you today. Prayer was a blessing.